This is Stories from the Trail, Episode 2. I'm Gary Sizer, one of your hosts. Ordinarily, we would like you to be able to just pick a random episode and listen. You don't have to go in order. But today's an exception. This is a two-parter, and this is part 2. So if you care about context or want to understand what you're about to hear, you should probably go back and listen to the first one. You don't have to. You could always flip-flop them, listen to the second one first, and then go back. No, you should probably listen to the first one first. Anyway, here's number 2. Enjoy!
Smelly. Like the habits, like normal things that we do become quite gross. Like here's a quick example. I had a Camelback, or one of the hydration bladders. It might not have been a Camelback brand, but I was too lazy after going to the bathroom. Like I was too lazy to get out my hand sanitizer at one point. So if I need to wash, like rinse my hands or something, because I didn't bother with hand sanitizer after peeing. Again, that's gross thing number 1. I would just get a little bit of soap, like my little Dr. Bronner's soap, do a little 1 drop in my hand, and I would take water because I didn't have a water bottle, I would take water from my Camelback, put it in my mouth, spit it into my hands, and I would wash it and call it good. But it's a drop of soap.
Yeah.
But the water just was in my mouth a little bit for a short period of time.
I mean, that's hard to argue with because it worked, right?
Because it worked and I didn't get norovirus.
Yeah, okay, well.
I mean, it's the same as licking your hands. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm going to do that and then go shake a bunch of people's hands because that's gross. But it's only my germs and my bacteria.
It's not like
you're doesn't matter if my germs and my bacteria are getting on my own hands.
It's not like you're licking someone else's hand.
Right. Like if someone came over and was like, hey, can I have a little bit of soap? I want to wash my hands too. I wouldn't give them a drop of soap and then put water in my mouth and spit it onto their hands. No. I would just tell them to do it for themselves, Just do it yourself. Use your own mouth water.
You spit into my hand. I'm
not going to spit in your hands. We have different germs.
Okay. So, you saw the thing where I said I was going to split the show into 2 shows, right? We do the part with Zach first. So
yes, you heard that right?
No, what would you say?
I said yes, I did hear that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, see that. I mean, I read it. I didn't hear it. I can hear words, Gary. I can hear text.
Professional podcasters, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, we're gonna get paid for this. I'm kidding.
Someday. All right.
Someday.
So we're doing our conversation with Zach first, and then we're gonna provide like a natural break where. I'll come on and I'll do a little bit of voiceover that says, thanks for listening. Well, I'll take us out, and then you and I will be back for the beginning of the second episode. So I think what we need to do next is just spend about 5 minutes pretending that like a week has passed and we just finished talking to Zach, and now we're gonna do something different, and it's a totally different episode, and now we're gonna talk to Mark, right?
Okay.
So, or did we just do that?
Did we? Mark's pretty great.
What do we know about Mark?
I don't know about much about Mark, or not as much as you do, because he's been your friend for how long?
Oh, early 2000s, I think, like 2003, 2004. So, gosh,
so
I'm
15 years?
15 years. Yeah, is when I first met him.
Years? And I met him.
We didn't really,
while
we didn't
we were
really become
hiking.
Friends, though, until about 2010.
Wait, you knew him, but we're not friends with him?
Yeah, I knew who he was. Like, I had seen him at, Katie and I used to be whitewater paddlers. We were into kayaking for a few years.
Yes. Yep.
In fact, we did that way more than we did any hiking or backpacking. In fact, the whole reason that we moved to Asheville was so that we could be closer to places to put our boats in the water. We weren't even thinking about mountains. It's so weird.
You didn't even care about the mountains.
Like the mountains was just kind of like an extra, like, oh, there's
Like,
mountains
cool,
around these
added
rivers too.
bonus. That's really awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were big into whitewater for a while. Now when I say that, I don't mean like we were really good at it or anything. We just really liked it. And Asheville is central to, I think within about a 3 hours drive, there's at least 200 different rivers that you can
Oh,
put your
wow.
boat in for every skill level you can think of, class 1 to class 5. And Katie and I were,
And class 5 are the hard ones, right?
yeah, class 5 are the ones where like, so there's like there's a chart that explains, like on class 1, it's perfectly flat and you might have to actually paddle to move. I think class 2 is like occasional ripples and you might hit a rock. Class 3 is like, there's a certain criteria. I don't remember exactly what they are, but class 5 is where they start saying like you might die.
Oh,
Yeah. So that's like
that
big
sounds
drops
like the
and
type
like,
of hiking I'd like to do.
yeah. So Mark has done some class 5. They call them descents because you go down. It's all downhill. It's like skiing, I guess.
Oh.
Well, Mark has done a few class 5 descents, and like we always knew him as like, oh, he's that hot shot paddler, and he's this good looking guy, and he's really funny, and he's one of the admins of an online whitewater paddling board where we met. Like this is before Facebook, so it was just like a message
Yeah.
board. But it's like where we met a bunch of people who lived in Asheville and became friends with, and that's why we moved there. But like that's how we met Mark, was through the kayaking scene. And
Ah.
he was kind of like Bodie the surfer in Point Break with Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think we
Like
discussed this already, that I don't get any references. I'm
so
not getting that one either.
so so Point Break is a movie. Okay, you know who Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze are, right?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So anyway, Mark was kind of, I guess we'll cover that later. Mark was kind of like Patrick Swayze's character. He wasn't a bank robber, and he didn't try to kill my girlfriend, but he was that good-looking guy who was like really good at extreme sports and like,
So he's
you
like
know,
he's really, really cool.
yeah, it was really cool.
So basically, Mark was or is super cool, and you and Katie had a friend crush on Mark
You
for like
know,
5-10 years.
I was a little starstruck when I finally met him.
Okay, you totally had a friend crush on him
I
then.
kind of did a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, you did.
But he turned out to be like, just regular dude, super cool guy, fun to hang out with. And then,
Like a normal person?
no, he's still a little weird, but that's good because that's how
Yeah.
we relate. And when I say weird, what I mean is like the first thing we ever did together as a trio, me, Katie, and Mark, was Mark made a Facebook post in 2010 that said something like, "Hey, who wants to go play in the tundra this August? Let me know." And like that was it. That's all he gave us to go on. It's like, play in the tundra. What are you talking
Land.
about?
Which tundra?
Yeah, exactly. So he updated it and provided a link to something called the Long Range Traverse, which is a hike in Newfoundland. That's there's no trail. It's
Right. Okay, so this is Newfoundland. Yep.
Yeah. So in order to get to the start of the hike, in addition to getting ourselves to Newfoundland, we had to drive across the island to Grossmorn National Park and get on a ferry. There's a ferry tour of the fjords of Newfoundland. You buy a special ticket where instead of taking the whole tour, they drop you off at the turnaround point. Like they just barely slow the boat down and they kick you off. You have to jump out onto, they say there's a dock there. It's like a 6x6 wooden platform. So you jump out, you're like an hour into the fjords, like miles from anywhere, and they push you out of the boat.
And all of these tourists are having a really grand old time on this lovely boat tour, and here you are, just some random people with backpacks on. They're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this is our stop. We'll get off here."
Yeah, there's 150 people on the boat, and 147 of them don't have backpacks.
Yeah, so you're the weird ones. Okay.
Yeah. So Katie, Mark, and I, we were like, yeah, we'll do this with you. We'll find no one else would go. So we went with them, and this is we'd never even like really hung out before. So
it's a little risky.
It's a hell of a first date. So they drop us off at the turnaround point, and we had to hike an additional 3 miles into a gorge that dead ends, like a box canyon at the end. And it's not like Desert Gorge. It's all like super lush and overgrown and, plant life everywhere. But you get to the end of this
Beautiful.
canyon and there's a waterfall and you have to scale the canyon to the right of the waterfall to get up onto the plateau. And that's where the hike starts. Like that's the trailhead.
It's kind of like the AT's stairs. Like you have to do a lot of stuff before you
the
can
approach
actually
trail
start.
takes 4 days. But you
Oh
get
my
up there,
gosh, yeah.
and like I said, there's no marked trails, there's no blazes, no signs, and all you have are the GPS coordinates of designated campsites. I'm making air quotes when I say campsites because all those is like 3 wooden platforms that just enough to keep you up off the marshy. When tundra unfreezes, it's like swamp. So
It's nice that they put in
It is.
platforms, though.
The platforms aren't just for us; they're also to protect the vegetation up there. So you're not
yes, that
sleeping
makes
directly
sense.
on the ground. But the whole thing is map and compass work. So you tell the rangers at Gross Morn before you start, when like your approximate anticipated finish time, and then you have to take a test. It's a written test and a practical test with a compass and a map to prove that you know what you're doing, and before you can get the permit. Like you don't just let anybody go up there. But the whole reason I talk about any of that stuff is because that was Katie's and my first date with Mark. That's how we met him.
Again, that is a hell of a first date.
Yeah, and we just had such a great time. He turned out to be a nerd just like us. He does get, he gets way more pop culture references than I ever will. Megan's on one end; she gets none. I get a normal amount. Mark gets like all the pop culture references, but in addition to that, like he'll reference like Dante's Inferno, or like, oh yeah, that reminds me of the time that Don Quixote did a thing in a book I'd never
He
read.
adds
Like,
in additional references.
yeah,
He can
super
just keep
smart.
compounding it with lots of references, and I'll get some of a very few, but some of the literary references, but none of the TV ones
Yeah.
or music.
Yeah, he's a walking encyclopedia, and pretty amazing guy behind the lens of a camera too.
Oh, definitely.
That friend crush that I talked about that we had before we actually met was based on not only me seeing his glistening abs on the other side of the river, but
It wasn't just his hair and abs and his jawline.
I was blinded by his teeth. No, but his pictures are, like everything he does is like museum quality, like art. It's just, it's amazing.
I agree.
Mostly landscape stuff too, but
Yeah.
So we're pretty lucky to have him on in the second episode, and we recorded that interview. Not really. I'm not gonna say interview because it's more of a conversation. But
No, it's a conversation.
Yeah.
It's not really an interview.
no, but yeah. So we recorded that conversation a couple of weeks ago, and here it is. And then I'll splice that in, and
Perfect.
yep. And I think that's about it. And then once
Can you edit out my when I get tongue tied and can't say
all
words?
that stuff we'll cut all that out.
Sweet. If you have to leave it.
Gossamer gear, gorilla, which has the whistle and the sternum strap, but I don't think I would think to use that.
This week's episode is brought to you by the Gossamer Gear. No, I'm just kidding. It's brought to you by the
Is
guy
that how
who
we get
wrestles
sponsors?
mountain lions. Yeah. So Megan, you made an interesting side comment a little bit ago that I wanted to address. You said we've all hiked the AT. We haven't. I want to make sure that the people listening to us, don't think that we're making a show that's just for long distance hiking. We're not just talking about the AT, not just talking about the PCT or Zach, you going for the triple?
The saying goes, you either hike one trail or you hike all three. It's too soon for me to say with any certainty. Right. As of right now, I'm leaning toward probably a section hike of the CDT, but when I finished the AT, I thought there was no possibility of me hiking the PCT, and here I am. So
there are a lot of people that jump Aren't there a lot of people that jump immediately between trails?
Oh, there's people who
Yeah,
do, they try to do all three in 1 year.
yeah,
That's true.
and I think if through hiking wasn't such a financial burden in terms of not only the cost, but obviously you're not generating any income. I think there's a lot more people that would probably do all three trails in 3 consecutive years.
Oh
But
yeah,
that pesky job part gets in the way.
that darn job. Gary, you said this isn't just for through hikers.
Mm-hmm.
I am still a through hiker in that I've done the AT, but I have no future plans that are very, very close to doing any other trails right now. Of course, I would like to do some down the line, but right now I'm a day hiker.
Yeah, me too.
That's all I do. And you know what? Day hiker is, I don't even know if I really deserve that because I haven't been hiking as much, but it's certainly one of those things that right now with a real job, that's all I can do. And right now that's all right with me.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of day hikes. I'm doing some section hikes whenever I can. I did about 100 miles in Virginia last summer. Katie and I spent a week up in the Shenandoahs. I guess that was this summer. The one I did was last summer. And then about a month ago, I did something called the Foothills Trail. Have you guys heard of this?
I have.
Zach, I know, yeah, you have. It's 76 miles, and it straddles the South Carolina North Carolina border. And I did the whole thing about a month ago, and about 4 or 5 years ago, I forget exactly how many, I did a section of it with my good friend Mark Calcagni. And I want to bring Mark on to talk about that because he knows a lot about that trail, and I recently did it, and it'll be fun for you guys to meet him. Mark's an old friend of mine. We met back in our kayaking days. I used to do some whitewater paddling. He and I have traveled all kinds of places together. We've gone to Newfoundland and Iceland, and he and Katie and his wife Sue are all good friends. And I want to introduce you to our friend Mark. Mark, if you're there, say hi.
Hello.
Hi, Mark.
Greetings.
Hey,
Hello.
Mark.
So,
When did we do the Foothills Trail?
oh
Or
gosh.
or parts of it?
I think it was, we did Foothills
I guess, was that
um
2010? Could
the
that really
year
be
before
7 years
you did
ago?
the 18. So 2013.
Yeah, that sounds
Um,
about right.
so yeah, we did a section, and as would be expected for you and me, we started in the middle of the trail
Yeah.
rather than starting
Why
on
start at
one end
one
or the
end?
other. There was a section that my background. I had been living in Northeast Georgia, which there's that section where along the Chattooga River, where South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia all run together, and so that had kind of become uh, my stomping grounds for a while.
I think that
Um,
might actually be my favorite part of the whole Foothills Trail is the section that follows the Chattooga River. It was just
yeah,
beautiful.
it's an amazing section of trail. The Chattooga has a story history, I guess.
Yeah.
It's where Deliverance was filmed in the early to mid 70s, and it kind of became a whitewater proving ground for paddlers in the southeast.
The same section that the
And
trail goes by?
well, actually, the section that hikes that goes along the Foothills Trail, I think primarily goes along the east fork of the Chattooga and then into the Chattooga proper. Did you go out to the fishery this time? Towards the fishery on
I
the
remember, yeah, Fish
section?
Hatchery Road there was a fish hatchery that I crossed.
Yep, that was on the
That
east
was one
fork
of
of
the
the
access
Chattooga.
points. Yeah, but that river
So
is just amazing, especially, that time of year, like early November, late October, I say would be a good time
yeah,
to go. Um,
yeah, and
the
so that was kind of my introduction to the Foothills Trail. It wasn't as a trail proper, but as kind of an extension of me paddling the Chattooga and hiking the areas around Highlands and Cashers, North Carolina. So,
Your
and I
Panther
think,
Town.
had you heard of the foothills before we did that section?
I had not. You actually were the first person to introduce it to me, which is weird because it's like the eastern end of the trail is like an hour from my house. I should have
Yeah.
done this thing a dozen times by now, but
Well, what
yeah.
I determined was anyone who lives in Asheville tends to ignore everything pretty much east of them and concentrates on the
It's easy to
Smokies.
do though, because I'm going to drive by 15 trailheads to get to the Foothills Trail,
Yeah,
including one
exactly.
that's literally steps out my front door.
Yeah,
So the Foothills is, if you think of the Blue Ridge Mountains, they call North Carolina the Highlands. A little bit south of the Blue Ridge is the Foothills area. I've heard it called the Blue Wall before, probably because of Table Rock State Park. But then that's kind of like where the flatlands of South Carolina turn into the mountains, right? So that's like right
right.
at the foothills of where you start picking up elevation. The whole thing is like, I think the highest point is 3,500 feet above sea level.
Yeah, somewhere around 37, I think. Yeah,
That's
it's somewhere
sassafras.
right. It's somewhere right in there, and it's uh I
Yeah,
can't remember. I'm
I
blanking on
think
the name
it's
of the mountain. Do you
so.
remember?
If you progress from west to east, which is I did, so you start with the Chattooga River, which is amazing. It's just this wide, flat, clear water. I mean, with big, like Mark was saying, these huge whitewater drops. Like I don't even know how many waterfalls. I stopped counting after 20. I mean, they're the kind of waterfalls that are like 100 feet tall, and just there's so much of that. As you work your way east, then you get to, how do you say, Lake Jocassee?
Jocassee.
Lake
Yeah,
Jocassee.
you got a chain of lakes that are right there on the South Carolina North Carolina border. You've got Gorgeous State Park, which is the headwaters for the Whitewater River, the Toxaway River, and I'm going to blank on the third, the Thompson River.
That's it.
All of those rivers flow into Lake Jocassee, which is a rarity kind of in the southeast. It's a high mountain lake, and the waters are actually pretty clear. And then and flows downstream from there into Lake Keowee, and then down into the flatlands of South Carolina.
And you
And
get to
that's
look down
those
into
three
those
rivers, along
flatlands.
with the Chattooga, pretty much make that area a bit of an
You'll cross a bridge and they can just pull up their boats right there.
Now that leads me to a question. You mentioned there are fishermen along this trail. Is this trail relatively busy, populated, popular?
I think
I
I
would
saw.
not compared to a lot of the area. I think that it still has the reputation of, just when you say Foothills Trail, people get the idea that it's not particularly exciting. There tends to not be a lot of high mountain views.
I think, yeah, it gets
Uh,
overlooked because, even the name Foothills, it doesn't sound like you're getting into much, but the prominences are there. You're going up to 3,700 feet, but you're coming up from under 1,000. So you're still getting big
exactly.
climbs like you would in the Smokies, or, getting up on one of those ridges in the Shenandoahs. You still get your big climbs, and the views are not, they're really nice. You can look out over the lake and down into the flatlands, or into the fog and the rain.
So maybe the name Foothill is a little bit of a disservice then to
I kind of
to
think
the
so,
trail.
yeah.
I think so. But I mean, it definitely is accurate, because you get right from there, heading west, and all of a sudden you end up around Highlands, which is the highest populated city above 10,000 people in North Carolina, and that's right up around a mile high. So the term foothills doesn't do it justice. No.
Mm-mm. Especially
Well, I mean,
when
you also mentioned like 20 waterfalls or so. So
There
I
are,
mean, there's stuff to look at.
oh yeah, there's
yes,
big
and that's,
named
but the thing
waterfalls
is,
with like
oh, go ahead,
signs and
Gary.
entire side trails devoted to them, and you can put in about 15 to 20 extra miles just hitting all the waterfalls. You don't really need to though, because I think I walked by at least a dozen that were within like 0.1, 0.2 of the trail. Hilliard
Yep,
Falls.
Hilliard or Bear Creek.
Oh,
Yeah,
Bear Creek, yeah.
that's an interesting little fall that's right off the trail. And again, it's one of those, because of the number of waterfalls that are in the area. Um, the highest waterfall, well, depending on who you're talking to, one of the highest waterfalls in the east is Whitewater Falls on the Whitewater River, and it's right there. And it's an extra mile, I think, mile
Yeah.
and a half
Yep.
off of the trail, but it's those falls that draw all the people. And so you've got these beautiful little waterfalls like Hilliard, Bear Creek that just are right on the trail that, after a while, you just kind of don't even notice anymore. It's kind of like hiking out west. Oh, yep, well,
Oh,
here's
yep,
another
look at that road.
10,000-foot pass.
I think that's long distance hiking in general
Yeah.
is you're out there for so long and here's another sunrise. Oh, here's another mountaintop. Here's another gorgeous view. I mean, at some point it becomes like it's just beautiful view after beautiful view, and you just kind of have to take it all in and realize, hey, some days are going to be bad weather and you're not going to have it. So be thankful for the days that you do have them.
Yeah,
I don't know how that goes on the Foothills Trail. Like, I don't know how the weather was. Like, does that affect your view? I imagine it would.
Oh, yeah.
I ran into some really
So
thick
is it prone to
fog
bad weather?
and rain for the second half of the hike. So I got a lot of waterfalls through the mist, and mist over the lake, and wet thumbprint on lens, and those are my pictures. I was going to say one more thing about foothills. If you keep, when you keep going east, and it finishes at this place called Table Rock, which is it's a Pluton. It's a Pluton is a
Pluton?
yeah, it's like a bubble of magma that almost erupted and didn't. So think of like a zit that doesn't quite pop, but made of granite and miles high. So Looking Glass Rock is one of those, and it just looks like a giant rock. What am I thinking of? Half Dome's not a Pluton, but it's like our version of that.
If you've ever been to Stone Mountain in Georgia, that's a Pluton. Stone Mountain in North Carolina is a Pluton. Looking Glass Rock. They're anything that looks like a big round granite bubble.
Plus, it's just fun to say.
Oh, I had to Google. I hate to say it, but I know I've been on those stone mountains, and I know I've seen Looking Glass Rock. I think, right, Gary? I've seen that. That was there.
You did not see that when you were here.
Wasn't that like? Can you see that from the AT?
No.
Oh well, at least now I know what it looks like. I had to Google it, but yeah. I've seen something like that
just
before.
Just up the road from here.
With a really, really smooth side there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. This trail, it's about 80 miles long, correct?
Yeah. Which makes it ideal for like if you just got back from the AT or the PCT and you haven't quite gotten enough, you need a place to decompress. I took a week to do it. That's a week.
So that was my question. Is how long?
Yeah, I read. In fact, I read on your site, Zach. I was looking for some trip reports, and there was one lady who did it in 3 days, which that's like 3 25-mile days. If you've got your trail legs, not bad.
How many waterfalls in a day do you want?
See, that's why I took a week, though. I wanted to take my time.
Well, it was funny because you and I were planning. My plans got derailed, but we were planning on doing it about the same time. Mm-hmm. And your initial plans were to see if you still had your trail legs, and you were going to try and knock it out in 4 days.
I didn't.
And then I think I think, and then you decided maybe I'll just stop and enjoy the view this time.
Yeah, I'm glad I did. So,
It's about the miles, not the. I mean, the
Yeah.
smiles, not the miles. I was gonna mix that up. It's about the smiles, not the miles.
so
Was there any, not that I'm expecting a mountain lion encounter, but any notable wildlife out there?
I'm trying to think. Oh, all right. So you know how in like fancy European spas you can pay like $150 to stick your feet in a fish tank and let the minnows nibble on your toes to exfoliate your calluses? I got to do that
Yeah.
for free on the Foothills Trail.
It's funny. That was the last place that where it was actually right past Hilliard Falls. It was a little pool, and you just put your feet in, and
Not the
I think
water
you gotta
source.
use the people waiting.
At least I hope that's not the water source.
Let's be real. We've all drank from worse water sources than that.
Well, hey, one of the
I remember
things I
drinking out of a
love about
puddle.
hiking with Mark, in addition to the fact that he, shows you and introduces you to new and amazing places like the Foothills Trail, or, he took me to Newfoundland, he took me to Iceland, but Mark is also a professional outdoors photographer, and in addition to all of the ultralight hiking gear that we all love to carry, Mark, how many pounds of metal and glass do you add to your kit?
It could be anywhere from about 10 to about 30.
Why?
Oh my gosh, 30 pounds.
Yes.
I can't even imagine taking 30 pounds of food, and that's my first priority leaving town.
Well, there's kind of a difference between being a hiking photographer and a hiker that carries a camera. And it's every time you go out, you have to decide which one you're going to be.
What does that mean? What's the difference?
Because I mean, if the amount of equipment, I think people get hung up on that. I did carry a 75-pound pack in for a 3-day hike in Texas.
Ouch.
To get to the highest point in Texas, which I know is kind of a strange place to go, but there is a place that's almost 8,000 feet in Texas, and there's no water at the top. So in addition to the camera gear,
oh man,
I had to carry 13 liters of water. So and that was just for 3 days. But that's kind of the point is if you're just out hiking, and if you're a through hiker, you're not going to even consider, you're going to consider carrying a lightweight camera, and you're not going to have time to sit and wait for the sunrise to come up for 2.5 hours to see what happens to the light. And that's kind of when people ask me, what camera they should bring on the trail, I really don't have a good answer for them because there's no such thing as a hiker's camera. It completely depends on what kind of story you want to tell. Most of the people I know on the trail just wanted to document their experience, and that doesn't necessarily mean, carrying a camera and a tripod and a lens so you can shoot the Milky Way at 2:00 in the morning. So
Mark, do you have any recommendations for someone who's just starting out in photography, who wants to go a little bit past the smartphone camera, which I gotta say, but if they're looking to level up from that,
if you're looking to level up from a phone, then the first thing is you do have to ask yourself what I'm most interested in shooting. And I hate to be that guy that says it depends, but if you want to go out and you're hiking and your main interest is shooting wildlife, and catching that bear or that mountain lion or something, that's going to require an entirely different setup than someone who um, shoots kind of what we consider photojournalism style. The old news photographers used to go out with a 35 millimeter lens and a small handheld Leica camera that is the whole thing weighed 1.5 pounds. And their idea was to actually capture a story. So it's knowing what you want to do at the beginning helps a lot. That said, I would probably look at something like a small mirrorless camera and an interchangeable lens camera. That something like a Fuji X-T2 or something like that, that will give you good image quality. And most of your shots, and I'd say probably 80% of my shots are shot with the equivalent of a 24 to 80 millimeter lens.
So you say a mirrorless camera.
The defining terms, okay. For the longest time, there were two types of cameras for shooting film. Primarily, that was digital SLRs. Or SLRs, which are your old. It has a big eyepiece and a viewfinder, and it has a mirror that flips up out of the way to let the light hit the film. Otherwise, it would kind of bend the light up so you could see exactly what was going on through the lens.
For those of you under the age of 30, that's why your camera goes when you.
Yes, exactly.
When
there's
the
that big
on
clunk
on your phone.
That's that mirror going up and out of the way. One of the cool things that happened in digital is by using the sensor in the camera and just feeding off of that, you get to see exactly what happens through the lens on a screen on the back of your camera. So you don't have to have the extra weight of that big mirror and that big box. So they've been, it basically makes the cameras much smaller, and it also allows the lenses to be smaller. But because it doesn't have to have room for that big mirror to flip up and out of the way.
And you say mirrorless. I'm gonna guess probably because you're hiking outside with this thing, and you want the least number of moving parts, right, to keep it clean and things don't break, right?
Well, there is with a mirrorless, there is one downside, and that's when you take the lens off, the sensor itself is exposed. So you do have to be really careful. On a digital SLR, what's exposed is the mirror that flips up out of the way. So if you've got spray or something like that, you do have to worry about it a little bit.
And how do you keep your stuff from getting destroyed by the elements? I've seen you shoot with a plastic bag over your equipment before, but
a plastic bag. Making sure you've got your back to the wind, open up a jacket and do your lens change inside a jacket, that sort of thing. But it's you're not going to. I think a lot of it has to do with expectations of what people are going to want to get out of their trail pictures. I get a lot of why don't my pictures look like yours? And a lot of it is because I have the time to sit and wait 3 hours for the light, or I'm carrying a 4-pound tripod that kind of lets me open the shutter for a long period of time and without the camera moving around and shaking. So you don't have to have that to take good pictures on the trail. It's just once you move a standard deviation or two from the center, that's all that specialized wildlife or night photography or that sort of thing. as long as you go into it with, with reasonable expectations of, I'm out here and I'm going to, most hikers are going to be kind of reactive in their shooting.
Yeah.
Rather than planning ahead. They're going to come across something and want to take a picture. If you're putting in a 15-mile day, you don't have the time to sit and wait. You're going to shoot with whatever cool thing appears before you on the trail. So in that case, it's get as light a camera as you can.
Yeah.
Get a camera that you always have available.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, a lot of those are in the mirrorless cameras that have interchangeable lenses. So you could actually, they're small enough that you could take two lenses on a reasonable hike and get a fair range, and just take it from there.
One other thing you just mentioned a few minutes ago was people ask this common question: why don't my pictures look like yours? A big part of that too is post-processing, what a lot of people just kind of generically refer to as Photoshop, but it's a whole host of other tools and things you can use.
Well, yeah.
that's a whole other can of worms. Let's not open that can of worms right now, because that's what we can do is we can bring you back and talk about this on a future episode.
Okay, we can do
that. Do you
mind?
Cautionary tale. Well, Mark's able to tell us, what to do to have professional quality photographs. I can tell you what not to do.
Oh yeah.
I learned this on the PCT this year. I brought a Sony A6000, a mirrorless changeable lens camera. Carrying system was something called a capture clip, which basically you just affix it to your shoulder strap. I mean, you can use it anywhere on your belt, but for the purpose of backpacking, that's usually where people put it. And I learned that because my camera was not weatherproof, that the gap between the camera body and the lens was enough to let in dust and dirt particles. And the process for cleaning a sensor is much more sensitive than just, wiping it off with a microfiber cloth, which is what I was doing. Oh. So I did some pretty serious damage to my camera's sensor. Anything with an f-stop over 18 at this point with my current lens, you can still see some damage on it. So let that serve as a cautionary tale. If I were to do it over again, I'm not sure if I would either put some sort of carrying case over it, or at least, some tenacious tape over where the lens meets the body. But I would definitely do something to seal in the area where the body.
There are neoprene cases that will work with, and I have the same clip. And there are neoprene clips that will fit over that and still fit on the clip, because it'll leave the tripod mount that you had it mounted to on the bottom. So the clip would fit.
Yeah.
It leaves that open. So
this is how much of a weight weenie I am. I actually have the neoprene case that you're referring to. Assuming you're talking about the one that Peak Design makes themselves. Bring it because of the extra weight.
I mean,
assuming that.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, my thought process for not bringing it was that anytime that, the weather was going to be bad, if it was raining, I would just pack my camera away, even thinking that, that dust and dirt would be the biggest issue.
Yeah. The idea of trying to keep your sensor clean on an interchangeable, and that is one of the benefits of, going to a fixed lens, something like a Canon G7 or one of those where you've got a lens that's attached, is the sensor is going to stay clean.
And Mark, have you ever heard of anyone doing a DIY sort of approach toward safeguarding their camera to make it more weatherproof? Do you think it would be Rapt tenacious tape around it, or duct tape, or something along those lines?
I would probably, actually, to be honest, I would probably just use a wide rubber band.
Okay.
To get it, because with tenacious tape, if you are going to want to take the lens off at a certain point, you do want to, and if you are carrying a tiny little 2-ounce pancake lens, that'll give you a wide angle, you may want to swap it out. And the other thing is that one of the things that, if you're looking at that Fuji X-T2 that I was talking about earlier, is weather sealed, meaning that there's a gasket that exists between the lens and the camera body. So that's one of the things that you may want to look at when you look at a camera. Especially if you plan on having it out, is my camera, is the lens mount, and is the body mount, does it have a gasket, and is it weather sealed? So that's one way of helping anyway.
Cool. Well, Mark, where can people see your pictures?
There's my website is Laughing Totem Photo, LAUGHING photo.com. And it's primarily landscape, but there's some wildlife and some sports photography on there as well. Try and mix it up a little bit. And I also have some of my photography in context of stories on Rapt Journal, which is raptjournal.com, RAPT journal.com.
All right. So Laughing Totem Photo and or raptjournal.com is how you can find Mark's amazing photography. Zach, we think we said trick.co enough times. Do you say CO or co?
I say co, but I have no qualms against CO.
We're still saving up for the M.
Really. So, we're a website that tends toward being ultralight, so we dropped the M. It was a little too heavy.
Nice. All right. So usually as we get to the end of the show, one of the things we like to do is read emails from listeners. But this is episode 1. We don't have any listeners right now. There is literally no one listening. So we're going to ask.
Does your wife count?
If I bang on the ceiling, she might be able to hear me, but she'll listen later. So that's the cool thing about podcasts, is that everyone who listens to us is a time traveler from the future. And when you have your favorite show on Netflix or HBO or whatever, you go back years later and you watch the pilot episode and you think, wow, that really sucks. Why do I like this show? This is by definition, this is our worst episode ever. So
the worst, absolute worst.
Thank you for having me as your first guest. So it can only
Zach and Mark, thank you for helping to make this the worst episode we've ever recorded.
We are honored to be your worst guests ever.
We promise it's only going to get better from here. So once again, laughingtotemphoto.com. raptjournal.com. Zach, thank you for joining us. thetrek.co. I'm Gary Sizer, and here's something I was going to say. We want emails from you, and how can you
send
do
us
that?
emails?
And what do we want you to email us about? We want to hear your stories from the trail. So anything
or topics, topics you want us to talk about.
Sure, yeah. Give us suggestions. Tell us how we screwed up, what we can do better. We created a Facebook group for the show. So if you're one of those Facebook people, you can find us just by looking for Stories from the Trail. We are on Twitter, Stories from the Trail. The handle for that is @TrailStory. You can reach me. GarySizer.com has links to my blog, my Facebook, my Twitter, my friend face, my jitter, all that stuff. Megan, are you in hiding, or can people find you too?
I still don't have a Twitter account, but I did reactivate my Facebook account recently. So I've been on a 2-year hiatus, but I'm back. So
and thank you for the merino wool suggestion there, Megan.
Oh,
appreciate
no
that.
problem. I have lots of opinions on clothing and wool, to be specific. We could talk about that in another episode too.
We can. You know what else we're going to talk about on the next episode, just to help drive home the point that we're not a show just about thru hikers. We're going to talk to a guy who hunts Bigfoot for a living, and who is also
Oh,
an
yeah.
AT through hiker. And
He's one of my favorite crazy people.
Okay, so I hope you join us next time. Thanks again. This has been Stories from the Trail, a production of thetrek.co. And that's a wrap.
Okay.
That was fun,
All
guys. Nicely done. Thank you.
Good.
That
Oh,
wasn't
God, yeah.
close to a Sergeant Sizer, so yeah.
If I had forgotten to press record, I would have made the same sound that Zach made when that mountain lion came at him.
Yeah. Then we would have been able to have it IRL.
So, Zach, I just wanted, I kind of had a mountain lion experience in Eastern Oregon, except I never saw it. I was hiking. What? Yes, exactly. Well, because I was
stalking you.
Yes, I was hiking in the snow in the Wallowas of Eastern Oregon, and I was following what I thought was a trail, and it ended up, as is the case, ended up being a goat trail. So it stopped at the edge of a 15-foot wide, 30-foot deep chasm, and started up again on the other side. So I turned around and I took about half a dozen steps, and there were mountain lion tracks right on top of mine, and I backtracked for about 3/4 of a mile, and they were right up on top of me the entire time, and I never saw him. So yeah, that was fun.
Yikes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll be happy to never have another mountain lion encounter,
Yeah.
but at least it makes for fodder for getting me on cool podcasts.
Yeah. and hopefully you'll be able to get on one.
Oh. God damn.
You keep trying, Zach. Just keep plugging away.